So let me introduce myself. My name's Karen Hewitt. I'm the partner in charge of Jones Day here in San Diego. It's an international law firm. I'm the proud leader of a team of about 70 people, 44 lawyers here in San Diego. My background is I worked for the Justice Department for about 20 years. And the last 3 years of that, I was the U.S. attorney here. I was a federal prosecutor here in San Diego. So most of all, though, I'm at this point very proud to be here because my friend Deborah Rosen invited me as a member of the board of the San Diego North Chamber of Commerce to be the moderator for this panel. It's a wonderful panel. You're going to enjoy what they have to say. It's different from the panel you had this morning because we're going to talk about diversity, we're going to talk about inclusion, we're going to talk about the glass ceiling. So there's very few things I know in life to be true, and this I know to be true, that nowhere in America, nowhere throughout the entire United States is there a group of 500 men sitting together saying, let's talk about the glass ceiling. Men don't talk about it. They don't. So what we're going to do is really explore that, what it means, how we use words to describe ourselves and how we perceive how we fit into the workplace. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Cynthia. Cynthia, come on out.
Hi there. My name is Cynthia Curiel. I'm the Vice President of Communications for Northrop Grumman Aerospace Systems. And I have been in this job for 5 years, and I have an amazing team of about 200 people. And they are located all over the country, and many of them are right here. So I think that it's going to be an engaging conversation. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to shut up, let the rest of them come out.
Hi. My name is Sue Zwinger. I'm married. We have 2 wonderful daughters in their 20s. I'm coming to you from my home in Lake Las Vegas, Nevada. And on the other side of my life, I'm Vice President of Oracle's Global Tech Support Team, responsible for computer support. In my experience in the computer technology industry, I've had just a wealth of learnings. I've insourced, I've outsourced. I've onshored, I've offshored. I've hired, I've fired, I've acquired, I've been acquired. I've built teams and I've torn them down. So I hope today to be able to share a few of those learnings with you.
Good afternoon. I'm Wilma Owens. In 1973, I saw a poster that said the Marines were looking for a few good men. They got me instead. I spent 14 years as an active duty Marine and rose from the rank of lieutenant to major. I got out of the Marine Corps to raise my family. I am now Dean of Career Technical Education at the best community college in the state, Palomar Community College. I'm married to my husband Reginald, and I have 2 children, Jessica and Nicholas.
Good afternoon. My name is Lori Ann Stevens. I am a construction executive with Turner Construction Company. My very first job in construction, I was a glorified laborer in an occupied prison. 15 years later, I'm doing business development for one of the world's largest construction companies. And thank you for having me.
Good afternoon, I'm Kathy Hutchins, Vice President of Business Development and Patient Engagement for Sharp Reese Daily Medical Centers, the best medical group in the universe. I'm very humbled to be up on stage here today because I've learned so much from all these wonderful women throughout the week. It's really been an inspiring week, I think, for all of us. I've had a variety of jobs throughout my career, everything from selling Avon was my very first job to painting piers, dock piers in a lake in Wisconsin. And again, just delighted to be here to share with you today.
Great. Welcome, panelists. We're so glad we're all here. So today we're going to start by talking about barriers, about those things in life that may be holding us back, whether intentionally or unintentionally, and how we describe them. And the whole notion of the glass ceiling is something that I think women are very aware of, but I don't think men really think about. But yet each of us in our lives have pushed through barriers. I know, Wilma, you've pushed through barriers in your life. Do you feel like there's a glass ceiling that you had to push through?
I don't think of it so much as a glass ceiling as I think of it as blazing trails. When I joined the Marine Corps in 1973, there were very few women officers. There were even fewer black women officers. In fact, there were so few of us, we all knew each other by name. So I don't think I broke through the glass ceiling because I spent 14 years on active duty. I didn't become a general, I was a major. But I hope I broke trails for the women who came after me, because in the units where I was, I think I set the standard and did the work and showed that women could be effective and could be good leaders, because you found that leadership is having people go where you want them to go and having them arrive not realizing how they got there. So I think I learned to be a good leader. I think I taught other people how to be good leaders. As a dean at a community college, I'm not the chancellor, but I think I look around me and blaze trails for other people who come after me. So I'm not sure whether there's a glass ceiling, because I think of your career path as being limitless. You can go anywhere.
I don't think when boys show up for a new job, or young men show up in their first job, the first day they say, there must be a glass ceiling here. They don't think about that, right? So why should we? But I don't know, Lorianne, did you ever experience anything when you first started at a job where you felt like people weren't taking you seriously the way you wanted to be?
I did, and again, I wouldn't label it as the glass ceiling. I would reword it to say, I just won't take no for an answer. So at a construction company lifetimes ago, previous to Turner Construction, I was in a meeting at the fresh age of 27 in my new managerial position, and the president of the company came to the meeting and he goes, "What's she doing there?" And they said, "Well, this is her new position." They go, "Get her out of here, she's too young and a woman should never be doing this job." And I looked at him and I smiled respectfully, went and got a master's degree in civil engineering and get an opportunity to be an assistant vice president at another firm 3 months later. So I just don't take no for an answer.
Great. So I think for our group here, our advice about the glass ceiling is first pretend it doesn't exist, right? And then beyond that, don't take no for an answer. So let's talk about some other best advice, career advice you might have received along the way, because I know that I'm always interested and I feel like I'm always learning. I've been a lawyer for 25 years and I still learn great advice from people. Backstage, I was just hearing great advice from all of you. So Cynthia, why don't we start with you? What's the best piece of advice you ever received?
The best piece of advice I ever received was to, it sounds so redundant, for everything that we've heard like all day long is, don't take no for an answer, stand up for what's right. I think there was something Melissa said on the panel earlier, don't push and push and push to be right. Make sure that your point is made and stick to your guns, stick to your values, stick to who you are, but be ready and willing to collaborate. That's the most important thing.
Kathy, have you received good advice along the way that you want to share?
I've been fortunate to receive so much good advice. Every day I feel like I receive great advice. But I think one that sticks out is everything happens for a reason. And while I may not understand it at the time that it's happening, and sometimes say, really? I'm really being tested here, that if you can find the good and an opportunity through something that happens that maybe is not the most pleasant experience and learn from that, then it's a valuable lesson.
Very good advice. So Sue, you're an executive at Oracle. You don't need advice. You work at Oracle. You guys know everything.
Every day. But I think the one that stuck with me the most is that with every promotion you get, you are one step closer to the door. There's only one president, there's only one CEO, so you need to savor your job, you need to perform every day because there are 12 people behind you waiting for your job. Take it seriously.
I've heard a piece of advice that's similar to that, but the other side of it, and that is every day work the way that as if you are trying for the job you want. So really focus on the next job ahead of you too. Think about that. So Wilma, what about advice that you've received along the way?
I think the best piece of advice I've ever been given was be prepared. You don't know what opportunities are around the corner, but be prepared. If it's education, get that degree. If you need an advanced degree, get the advanced degree. If you need to know about systems operations, get to know it and know it well, and be prepared and let people look at you as the expert.
So Lorianne, you work in almost an entirely all-male
Not
business
entirely,
industry.
there's 3 Turner ladies here right now.
But you must have gotten advice along the way that really helped you succeed.
I did, and the most important piece of advice I've received is be accountable for your actions. The power of saying you're going to do something and then following through and doing it. And it even goes too far as the power of a handwritten thank you note when you've met somebody new. Relationships are there, and they can be the most great asset you ever have in your career, whatever the career is. So always do what you say you're going to do, write very nice thank you notes personally, and always stay true to yourself.
So the next topic I wanted to discuss that hasn't come up today is how we as women leaders, how people respond to us based upon our femininity and how we can be taken seriously, because that's a tricky subject. On one end of the spectrum, if we downplay our femininity, then we're really not being true to ourselves, we're not being authentic. And on the other end of the spectrum, if we're too feminine, too sexual, then all credibility is lost. So how do you strike that balance in the middle? I met actually on Monday of this week, I was in Washington, D.C. for a diversity conference, a legal conference, a national conference, and I met an author who talked about a book he wrote called Covering. The name of the author is Kenji Yoshino, and the whole idea of the book is that any minority group or any diverse group, if we cover who we really are, we're not being authentic and we're not actually, in the end, doing a service to all of us as women, as leaders, because we're downplaying those things that make us special and different. So, how do we strike that balance with femininity without being too feminine, with not being feminine enough so that we can really be leaders? Cynthia, you must see this every day at Northrop Grumman.
I think that there's a generation, certainly when I started, where the idea was that you just fit in. It's not to the extreme of maybe what Kristen described this morning, with don't ask, don't tell, but it's certainly about not being authentic. It's taking on a role, if you just get along, you'll go further. And I think it's really difficult. The easiest thing to do is just, especially in our business, I think that a few of us here can attest to this, it's to be one of the guys. And at some point, you feel like you're selling yourself out when you're being one of the guys. So you have to find and strike that balance. Sometimes I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of business when I get back to the office about wearing an orange jacket. They don't see me and stuff like this most of the time. So I think that in general, it's that idea of that authenticity, being yourself, and being respectful of the position that you're in. Be professional. Always be professional. And then that helps you strike that balance between being, too much one way and too much the other.
It's interesting because I think in the short term, women who are covering, they actually succeed because they're one of the guys and they elevate up through the system. But then over time, something really is lost.
Right.
So I don't know, Sue, do you see women covering every day and downplaying?
Sometimes you do. I don't golf, I don't watch basketball, but I wear crazy shoes every day. and I think, the other thing that commonly, I hate to stereotype, but commonly that women can do is take care of people. And with empathy and with a care and respect for a human, that goes a long way and sometimes is more easily found in women than men. So show it. Take advantage of that.
I think another way that women cover is sometimes they're reluctant to help other women because then that will only identify, again, that they are women leaders, right? And they don't want to reinforce that point. So rather than help other women, they try to downplay that and they try to be fair. So I actually, on that note, my team is here from Jones Day, all the wonderful women from Jones Day. So shout out to my friends and colleagues in the audience. So glad that they're here. So Kathy, you work for an organization that is predominantly women.
Yes.
How does this role of femininity play into
Well,
that?
and I'm fortunate to work for an organization and in an industry where caring and compassion is valued.
Yeah.
So I think it makes it easier for us to be able to show that caring and compassion, how we want to make a difference in the lives of one another, the people that we support, the people that care for our patients every day, and that we would do it in a way that's also great for the business, that's strategic. We can still hold people accountable, but do it in a way that we're allowing people the opportunity to learn and grow.
So it's interesting about the whole idea of being feminine because sometimes the reality is girls are viewed as being bossy. Many of you may have heard about this new initiative that Girl Scouts of America and also Sheryl Sandberg from Facebook has underway. That's recent, in the past few weeks, in fact, about eliminating the word bossy from the American lexicon. That when you think of the word bossy, have you ever heard a young boy described as being bossy? It just doesn't happen. Usually it's referred to girls. So, in what way does that notion of bossiness really apply to what it means to be a girl, what it means to be a woman leader? what it means in the workplace. I mean, Cynthia, do you agree with the idea of bossiness? What do we get out of
embrace
it?
my bossy. I love Sheryl Sandberg. We were talking about this a little bit. I think that the minute that you start to take exception with something that somebody is saying, it's a sign of weakness. They're able to get to you, you know, and I just think that being bossy is just fine. It's just fine.
You know, but it's important that we talk about these things out loud, because like if we're going to disagree that a glass ceiling exists, the reality is that being called bossy for especially girls can be viewed as a negative thing, and it can be hurtful. So I know I asked this previously backstage, and I know that some people have been called bossy in a negative way. Kathy, you experienced that when you were a kid.
Oh yeah, I was sharing backstage that I will never forget. I have a report card. One of my grade school teachers wrote, "She is bossy," and I remember coming home being like, "Oh wow, well we were able to like work together and we built things and we did great things out on the playground, and you know, sure I probably told people maybe what to do and how we could work together to do it, but you know, at the end of the day, it was a great result. So you know, wasn't that a good thing? So yeah, it is something though that I'll never forget.
Yeah.
But glad to see that we're able to actually, you know, turn that around and say it's a sign of leadership. So again, while a man might be, I've never heard a man called bossy or a boy called bossy, that we're using it in a way that is really inspiring for others and providing great leadership.
It's a strength. Yeah. So Wilma, you've experienced this firsthand too on a personal level.
Yes, I was sharing that I got married very late in life. Actually, I was 42 when I was married for the first time. And I'm the oldest of 7 children, 5 of whom are boys. My mother was telling my brothers, "Oh, Wilma called and she's getting married." And his response was, "Who would marry her? She is so bossy." You know, and by that time I'd been a major in the Marine Corps. Of course, it was my job to be bossy.
So whether we're bossy or not, I think it's a trait of executive leadership skills. There's no doubt about it. So let's shift for a minute and talk about diversity and inclusion and what that means to have diversity and inclusion, to really highlight giving women opportunities that may not have an opportunity otherwise. So some organizations formalize that. I know my law firm formalizes that. I think, Sue, Oracle has a diversity program. Can you share a little bit about that with us?
Sure. We have the Oracle Women's Leadership community, and it really is a grassroots community where we pull together those that are interested in sharing. And it's not so much to push women ahead, it's much more to share situations, to share learnings, to coach and mentor each other, and look for opportunities and feedback. So it's very useful, and it's useful to some of the men also.
So does every organization need a diversity alliance? Kathy, with your organization predominantly being women, do you have one?
We have leadership development programs, and really try to work with individuals, regardless men, women, you know, to help them aspire to see positions and opportunities for growth within the organization, both within their own department, within their own entity, or throughout our entire organization. So, and then I think, you know, one of the things we also talked about backstage is what we can do for younger women, younger girls, to help inspire them to hold positions of, you know, leadership within companies, regardless of what industry that is.
Think of all of us in terms of how senior we are in our careers now, and the reality is there has to be a pipeline of girls coming behind that one day will go through the system, become educated, take their place in the community, in the business community, and become leaders themselves. And unless we grow that pipeline, we all have to have responsibility for that. We won't have future women leaders, and this whole notion of the glass ceiling won't really ever be dispelled. One of the biggest organizations, I think this is interesting, I'm curious with the crowd, that actually is the largest nationwide organization to support young girls as future leaders is Girl Scouts. It's true. And I'm on the board of directors of Girl Scouts, and it's interesting, if you look in Congress, our elected officials, if you just look at this panel, how many Girl Scouts do we have here, former Brownies or Girl Scouts? Yeah. And I know, Wilma, you're the mother of a Girl Scout.
I've been the cookie mother more times than I want to.
And so how many Girl Scouts or former Girl Scouts do we have here? Look at this. See?
Wow.
That's wonderful. So think about that pipeline. And you know, when we're living in a world of reality TV and so many girls aren't interested in those kind of organizations, we're feeding that pipeline that will be future leaders, and that's outstanding. So,
But you know, I'm the mother of a child of each sex. I want both my children to be leaders. I want both of them to take advantage of opportunities. I want both of them to develop the skills that they have and to grow as human beings. So, I think we need to vote more for equality and push all of our children because our future depends on it.
Right. Well put.
That's right. So Wilma, what's your view of formal diversity or inclusion programs? Do they go hand in hand with that broader vision you were just talking about?
I think they do go hand in hand. We have women leaders on our campus. The president of our Student Government Association right now is female, and I think the one before her, she's in the audience, the one before her was a female. We need young people to step out and lead because our time is gone. As my grandmother used to say, my sun is setting in the work world. Somebody has to carry on. And 50% of the population, roughly, female. We need all of that talent to work and to carry on. So we have a diversity program. By making opportunities available, and you can go as far as you want. When we do recruitment for the community college, we look for diverse candidates, but we look for them in the context of who has the best skills.
Lorianne, should it be merit-based at the end of the day?
It should absolutely be merit-based, and it goes back to the leadership. Let's use the assets that we have in leadership skills and knowledge and run with those regardless.
So what's Northrop Grumman's diversity program, Cynthia? How does
So
that work?
there's a couple of different things. There's been a focus over the past few years on really recognizing that the largest population within our company are obviously engineers. And engineering is not typically, it hasn't been until quite recently, the kind of career path that most young women will take. We recognize that a lot of interest in science and math happens early and then drops off for young girls in 4th and 5th grade. And without mentoring to make sure that they continue to have that interest, it won't continue. And we won't have a pipeline that has the very best talent. The idea is that you want to have high performers, top performance. And in order to achieve that, you have to draw you have to cast a very wide net. But you have to make sure that the net that you're casting is bringing in talent that's true, strong, high-performing talent. It's not about checking boxes and making lists and just going through the motion of bringing in candidates of people of color, women, just for the sake of checking a box and then turning around and hiring a white male. It may be the best candidate is a white male, but the goal and objective of what's being done at Northrop Grumman today is really around this idea of casting a net for the very best talent and having programs through corporate citizenship that really encourage young girls and people of color, children of color, to really go into the sciences, technology, and math. We have a Women in Leadership program that's specifically for technical leaders, and it's being expanded to other disciplines within the company. But again, it's to drive to that very top talent.
That's easier said than done. And it sounds like what Northrop Grumman is doing is not just talking about it, you're actually doing it.
Concerted effort.
Yeah. My law firm has 16 offices in the United States, and 8 of the 16 are led by women. We never advertise that. We never talk about it. I lead one of them. We just do it, which I think is really what diversity is. It's diversity in action, as opposed to just talking about a program and then not following up.
But to add to that, I believe regardless of the organization that you work for, as people that have succeeded and have been very blessed in the industries that they're in, I feel it's our obligation to pay that forward and to be that person that people can come up to and say, I'm interested in engineering, or can you tell me what you do every day? And that's how I pay it forward, is I love being able to be that approachable person that can shadow somebody at work. This is what a day at construction is like, or this is what I do, or yes, that calculus class is very difficult, but you will get through it, and the opportunities at the end are endless. So I feel as successful women, it is our responsibility to keep that torch alive on our own accord.
That's outstanding. And that's a perfect segue to our last subject, and that is every single person in this room, whether you know it or not, you're a role model. And we can never have enough leaders. Everyone can be a leader too. There's no limit on that. So we have all had role models in our lives. And I think if we are very conscientious about it each day, thinking about someone behind you, you're a role model for them. So I thought it might be helpful to share stories of your role models, people who may have really impacted your life. So let's start with Kathy. Do you have a role model who, looking back, really helped shape you?
I've been fortunate to have several good ones, and one of them is right here, Miss who was up on the stage earlier from Sharp Healthcare. She was one of my first bosses at Sharp Healthcare, and I don't know if a lot of you do this, but sometimes just by watching someone not only in a business meeting, the way that they treat and interact with their colleagues, but the way that they treat other people outside of that meeting. Do you say hello to everyone that you come in contact with in the morning, or are you only concerned about people at a high level? And just watching her over the years, I've learned so much. I've just been blessed to be able to see, the way that she interacts and carries herself within Sharp Healthcare, and opens up the possibility of the difference I can make in people's lives because of what she's taught me.
Fantastic. Lorianne, have you had role models along the way?
I have, and because this is San Diego Women's Week, I'll make a metaphor to beaches. So the song Wind Beneath My Wings, of course, we all know I get choked up even when I think about it. But with two wings, I think that the two most important people, role models in my life, is because they were that metaphoric wind beneath my wings, and one of them is my mom. She's watching on live cast right now, so I love you, Mom. She's always been there for me and just strives to make me the best person that I can very much be. And the other person is in the audience as well, and that's Mrs. Erin Rooker. She has been there for all of my accomplishments, and she's my rock. So.
Fantastic. So Wilma, have you had a role model along the way?
I have had many, many role models, but I always have to go back to the foundation, and that was my mother and my grandmother, because I grew up in central Alabama, the child of sharecroppers, and it was my mother and my grandmother who said, you don't have to be defined by the color of your skin. You don't have to be defined by not having money. You can do whatever it is you want to do. So those were the people who pushed me, who said, you need to leave here. And I think the worst thing in the world a parent can say to a child is that you have to leave home. But that's what my mother and my grandmother said to me. In order for you to be a real person, you have to leave home.
Wow. So. What a lesson. So, Sue, we have many role models in life, and I'm sure you may have had more than just one along the way.
Yeah, I think we believe we're women of a certain age or seasoned here, but I think we need to look at the entire population, or that's what I've done, and learn from the good and the bad. Perhaps recently, the two people I've learned the most from are my daughters. One has a small business on her own, and it's it's quite a learning for me to see how she goes forward on that. And the second is competing in a heptathlon in college at Cal Poly right now. The strength and the individual and team spirit that she has are things I've not dealt with as an athlete. So you see those everywhere. It doesn't have to be seasoned old people. It doesn't have to be female.
Yeah.
And I see also people that have made mistakes. Even if I respect them quite a bit, you see everyone makes mistakes. And so trying to learn from those mistakes. For example, one person that I've considered quite a strong role model reached her peak as a vice president, had a difficulty in organizational structure, and quit on the spot. She has been unemployed for 5 years. I think about that often. No matter how difficult things are, take a deep breath and sit back. So a mistake made was one that I learned. So I think bottom line, the care and respect of every individual, everyone offers something, everyone should be a role model in a positive or negative way to you.
So I also think your role models stay with you wherever you are in your journey. So Cynthia, you've had important role models in your life. Can you share with that?
Yeah, I did a brief stint where I left aerospace and went to work for a biomedical company, not realizing that biologists are just as myopic as engineers. So it was the myopia of engineering was something that I liked better. So I ended up going back. But the woman that I worked for at that time, she ended up leaving that company, and she started up another biomedical company in Alabama, and she just recently passed away. She had pancreatic cancer. And she allowed herself to be a human petri dish in order to test a protocol to see whether or not it could successfully, the role model was she was very assertive, she was very strong, she was very driven, she was amazing. But where she became the greatest role model for me was the sacrifice that she made of her own health in order to allow herself to be used for science for the future, with two very, very beautiful, beautiful daughters and a wonderful husband. And she could have probably prolonged her life a little longer had she not done that. She taught me when I worked for her, never take personally anything anybody says, even when you know that it is. And always keep a smile on your face and put your best foot forward. And I think that no matter how bad it is, no matter what it is, don't lose. It's just, you know what Sue just said. Don't get lost in that flash of a moment and make a decision that you may regret later. And then the second role model, it does go back to something else. I have an 11-year-old daughter. We finally had take your daughter to work day or take your child to work day, and you have to be 10. So she'd been waiting for this and waiting for it and waiting for it. And she finally went, and I'm going to tell a story about, she went to a planning meeting for what we would do for Family Day, and she got to contribute in the Family Day and describe what she thought would be great for Family Day, and she came out of it, and she said it was great. And I said, you led the meeting? And she said, no, I was just part of the team. Well, I guess I did lead the meeting. And then she proceeded to tell me, and Megan is down there, she's laughing because she was with her. Megan leads our corporate citizenship team for San Diego. And she came out of the meeting, and I said, so, you know, she loves science and she loves math, and I said, would you like to come back and work at Northrop Grumman? Would you like to be an engineer? My husband's an engineer. She goes, yes. She goes, I do, for a whole lot of reasons, mostly because all that stuff we make needs more pink and more sparkle. There's a reason why battleships are gray, I guess.
So to everyone, be a leader, be a role model. You are all my role models. So thank you so much.
Karen, thank you. Thanks for moderating.